what was reported on NBC. And it says Donald Trump lost his temper during a security meeting, shouting and cursing out of frustration over the military options presented to him and the lack of progress toward a deal with Iran. And this is the situation we're in. And you know what's going on with the chaos in the West Asia. The attack, Saudi Arabia is attacking on two fronts, basically. And they attack Iraq, and before that, they were attacking Yemen. Yemen responded, and on the part of the United States and Iran, there were Iranian attacks on Jordan, and then last night we've seen the United States responding, retaliating, and then Iran retaliating again and attacking Jordan and other countries, and Kuwait. They attacked Kuwait and Jordan. This is what's going on, Michael. And as I've mentioned, the options for Donald Trump, one of them is military option, the other one is talking and negotiating. What is your understanding of the case of Donald Trump and the way the situation he has created for himself?
Well, apparently he's been losing his temper for the last 6 months or so, not only against the military, but against the economic advisors and the political advisors. And what he's angry at is the military's been explaining to him what your military commentators on your site have been saying, that from the very beginning, there was no way in which the United States could defeat Iran for a number of reasons. For one thing, Iran is focused on taking out the radar systems of all of the surrounding U.S. military bases, and that's prevented the United States from knowing exactly where the missiles are coming from and how to put in place defense systems. Trump said, we only had 7 minutes to respond in the case of the attack on Jordan. Well, they used to be able to tell a lot longer than that. But the most important thing is the whole U.S. strategy is Trump psychodrama, that and it's a psychodrama of the United States, Ukraine, also, that if we can just hurt civilians enough, if in violation of the laws of war, saying you hit military targets, not civilians, if we hit civilians, they will be, as in the case of Russia, they'll be so unhappy and hurt that they'll say, can't we change the regime and get a regime that the United States will accept, that is favorable to the U.S., so it'll stop bombing us and killing our women and children and civilians. Well, the Iranians have shown since 1979 that they can stand up for this. And the army said, this is not going to hurt Iran. The only way of defeating Iran is to hit military targets. When you hit the population, the effect is just going to drive them together and saying, we don't want any part of this. The U.S. is the enemy, and no matter what, there's no way we're going to surrender to the U.S. Army and military that's hurting our civilians so much. So hurting civilians doesn't help. And how do you hit the military targets that Iran has spent 3 decades, more than that, in putting all over the enormous country that it has in all sorts of places with decoys all around of false missile launchers? There's no way that the U.S. military can take them out. Plus, the military's running out of bombs and missiles, and if it expends what it has left on Iran, it won't be able to defend Israel or Ukraine or Western Europe from the simultaneous war on 2 fronts that it's fighting between both Iran and Russia. So Trump is furious at that. He's furious at the fact that from the very beginning, he started a war without spelling out, well, what are the objectives? Well, the first thing that von Clausewitz said, war is a continuation of economic policy. What is the economic policy? There's only one policy that Trump has been spelling out since the first administration. Beginning in 2018, he said, our aim for the Middle East, West Asia, is to make the Arab monarchies pay for the war, especially Saudi Arabia. We want to recover all of the expenses we're paying there from Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, just as we want to help Ukraine and Europe recover all the expenses of our war against Russia in the Ukrainian battlefield. So that's his philosophy, and this war that he's fighting is developing and expanding into a war against the Arab OPEC members just as much as against Iran. And that's what they see. They're stuck. What can they do? Because all of their savings of Saudi Arabia and the Emirate are invested in the United States financial system. So the United States at any time can simply say, well, we're recovering the costs of our war by sequestering your savings, just like we did against Iran. That's their nightmare of what's happening. They're paralyzed. What can they do? Well, that's why Iran is so insistent in saying, no matter what happens, we must control all of the tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz now, and we'll continue after the war to do it, because this war is going to be a military threat as long as the United States has a presence in the region, not only a military presence, but a financial symbiosis with the Emirates, with Saudi Arabia, with these governments. And it's that symbiosis that we have to end. And that's why Iran has been bombing the Amazon data centers and other Google and Microsoft and Meta data centers. It wants to end the whole linkages between the region's symbiotic relationship with investors in the United States and the part ownership and the whole plans for the United States to expand its attempt to create an information technology and automatic intelligence monopoly by saying, well, we can't build electric plants and provide energy here in the United States because we don't have the time to build new utilities, and we don't have the water to cool the plants. We have to go where the energy is, and the energy is in West Asia. The energies in the Emirates and Saudi Arabia. Well, the problem is they don't have water either. This is the whole dilemma for these monarchies, but also for Iran. How do we stop this symbiosis and get the whole influence of the United States out of the region? Because as long as the Arab countries have their hopes for making money and getting rich in America's financial markets, their hearts are going to be with U.S. foreign policy militarily and politically, and we're screwed.
What do you make of the sort of behavior we're witnessing from Saudi Arabia? For example, they're somehow expanding the war. We know the pressure on their economy because of the Strait of Hormuz, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the blockade in the Red Sea. On the other hand, you've mentioned they're going to pay for whatever the United States is spending with this war in the West Asia. And they're going to pay for that. And they know that, while their economy is somehow suffering a lot because of the war. And why is that happening with them and just expanding the war, which is not going to benefit them?
They recognized this already a few months ago when Trump said he was going to begin his attack on Iran. And Saudi Arabia said, we can't let you use, excuse me, we can't let you use our territory or our bases as a takeoff point to attack Iran, because Iran will attack us. So we're blocking our bases. That made Trump suspend his initial plans for the war earlier this year and have a workaround to avoid Saudi Arabia. So they already stopped him once, and they got Kuwait to agree with them, to both jointly saying you can't use your bases in either of our countries or fly over them. So they Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, realizes that they're stuck. On the other hand, he realizes that America holds all of Saudi Arabia's savings hostage, more or less, and there's that traditional fight of Sunni Wahhabi Islam against the Shia religion of Iran, and there's that element too. And the Saudi Arabia continues, when all's said and done, to throw in its lot with the United States. Well, and not only against Iran, but a long time ago, it fought against Yemen to conquer Yemen, and that's led the Yemenis, the Houthis there, a group of the Yemenis, to fight back, and they're able to stop the 5% of world oil that's exported by Saudi Arabia through the Red Sea, in addition to the 20% that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. And Saudi Arabia has already been trying for not only the last year, but for many years to defeat the Yemeni and prevent their ability to attack Saudi Arabia unsuccessfully. And it has to be a losing fight. So what's going to happen? Well, at some point, the war is going to come to an end. And the aftermath of all wars usually is political. I think we've discussed before in your show how World War I ended with removing the monarchies of Europe, not only in the defeated countries, but also in the victorious countries. Monarchies were replaced by we call parliamentary oligarchies, calling themselves democracies, but they were replaced. Well, let's imagine what kind of political backwash there's going to be when this oil war against by the U.S. against West Asia and Russia ends. I think you're going to have a lot of the sheikdoms and monarchies be replaced by what? Probably Iran will emerge victorious. You're seeing the whole negotiation and fighting between Iran and Oman right now over how are we going to control shipping through the Persian Gulf, through the Strait of Hormuz. Well, Iran is not going to share it 50-50. It's going to say, this whole war has injured us. We only have one way of stopping the war. The war is not against you, it's against us. We are going to control the strait. We are going to get the money. We'll share some portion of it with you. That's up to negotiation, but not very much. The argument is who gets what right now, and I'm not sure how Oman can solve the problems that Iran can always say, well, you used to be part of Iran once upon a time. That situation may be restored at some future date. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the problem, Michael, between Iran and Oman is basically the case of the Strait, which is influenced. The United States is trying to influence the Omani government in order to get as much as possible from the deal, from what's going on between Iran and Oman. But Iran is not going to back down. This is the problem. They want to control the entry and the exit in the Strait of Hormuz. That is crucial for them. Not because of the economy, because of what they gain by charging these vessels or ships. It's all about the security. It's so important because without the Strait of Hormuz being used and all these GCC countries being used, the United States would not couldn't start this war the way it started. They use all these military bases in GCC countries, and together with the Strait of Hormuz, by the way, most of these weapons and radars they were using the Strait of Hormuz to send all these weapons to these countries. Iran says no, that's not going to happen. This is the reality between, and as time goes by, you see the rhetoric on the part of, or the policy, the strategy on the part of Iranian is getting more harder and harder. Is getting, toward Oman, we know that they had for such a long time the relationship between Iran and Oman was so good, and right now it seems something coming to the surface because of this trade, and I don't see Iran backing down, Michael. To be honest,
I think there's a perception both in Iran and the United States that everything goes to an extreme. And the extreme here is there can only be one winner, either Iran or the United States. And the military is telling Trump, Iran has all the cards. There's no way that we can win. And if we just say, all right, if we can't win, let's just paralyze everything. Let's just close everything down and stall. Well, the longer they stall, the deeper they make the inevitable world depression and breakdown that's going to occur this no later than this autumn occur, because the oil isn't being shipped, the gas isn't being shipped, and the result is that you can only release so much oil from the National Petroleum Reserve before the reserve runs out. Or if Trump says we've got to keep oil prices down, and he means gasoline prices for the vacationers that are driving in August and September before the November elections, we've got to keep gas prices down. So even if we deplete so much oil from the salt caves in which the United States has stored its petroleum reserves, if we sell so much oil, and a lot of it's being exported to Europe to keep down the prices, well, so if the oil goes below, say, 70 billion, the limit of what the caves can hold, the caves will collapse. And Trump will say, that's okay. If they collapse, let's hope they don't collapse until after the first week in November, the first Tuesday when there are the elections taking place. By then I'll be in. So for him, everything is timed for the November election, and he'll let the economy of the United States be pushed into absolute crisis after election day, the midterm election day, in order to try to maintain the hold of the Republican Party, and specifically his MAGA group within it, against the Democrats, who are pledged to start impeachment proceedings against him and bring in an entirely different regime change. So the regime change that Trump wanted to bring about turns out to be in the United States, not Iran. That's the irony of all this. Just like the country, you will conquer a great country, the country Trump is conquering is the United States, not Iran.
What's going on, Michael, with the Iranian behavior? We are witnessing something new. They're changing their strategy. Their strategy was defensive, but it's getting somehow preemptive as time goes by, because there were attacks on Jordan, and again, New York Times reported that those yesterday there were some attacks on this port in Egypt, and they call it the Mieta port in Egypt. Two ships, American ships, were attacked, and New York Times just came out and said that Iran is behind those drone attacks. Because if the United States is using the blockade to attack Iranian ships or to hit Iranian ships, and they're going to find the American ships, it seems to me that if the story that New York Times just put out is right or is correct, and then Iran is going beyond the old strategy they had before. How do you see that?
Well, I think it had the right
Because the whole
strategy from
game
the very
about the
beginning.
economy, Michael, sorry for interrupting you. The whole game is turning into the economy is they're fighting each other considering their economy. They're putting pressure on Iranian economy. Iran wants to do the same to the United States. And how this economic war gonna go on, in your opinion?
Well, Iran has a higher tolerance for economic punishment than the United States because it's been living with this for a long time and has shown its resilience. The United States is not a resilient economy because it's so debt leveraged. It's living on the brink of insolvency for businesses, for labor, consumers, for local governments. And militarily, Iran's policy is realizing that the best defense is an offense. And in the United States, the reports are, look, Iran did just what you described, a surprise attack on Jordan. Well, what is surprising about this? The U.S. has continued to attack Iran with acts of war by blocking its oil exports outside of the Strait of Hormuz. That's an act of war. America's been an economic war with Iran all this time, preventing its exports. And an economic war is just as serious as a military war. So Iran realizes that, and it's also looked at the dynamics between Russia and the United States in their fight in Ukraine. And Russia has always, so far, been, we will do a proportionate attack. You can mount a surprise attack on us again and again and again, and we will react proportionally. Well, Iran has gone beyond that. It says, we're not going to just do proportionally. Proportionally won't stop. You get to decide what you can attack with us and what our proportional attack will be. If you attack us, we're going to do what normally is done in war. We will attack you with as strongly as we can. And it's because we are the superior military power at this point, since your missiles are depleted, your radar is destroyed, your early warning systems don't work, your missile systems are not able to defend the U.S. bases and areas against our drones and missiles. You don't have the defense. All of the military advantages are on our side, as I think your own generals have been telling you, Mr. Trump. So you can walk into a guaranteed losing war, but you came into office saying you want to be a new Napoleon for our era. Well, remember what happened to Napoleon when he attacked Russia, and again when he attacked Britain and lost at Waterloo. This is going to be your fate. Yes, you're going to end up like Napoleon. I'm not sure you'll be in exile. If it won't be in Elba, maybe it'll be in Israel. As all of your corrupt behavior has led to threats of imprisonment, but you're going to end up not in the way of Napoleon that you'd imagined when you picked him as your role model.
Yeah. The other point is, Michael, is the future of American bases in the region, and not only with GCC countries, but also in Jordan. New York Times reported that hundreds of Jordanian political, legal, and public figures have signed an open letter demanding the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Jordan. And because they're getting hit by
Yes.
Iranian drones and missiles. So what is the point? What is the gain for them?
The gain for whom?
For Jordanian, for all of these countries that they're fighting a war that nobody.
They don't want to be hit. They know that if the king of Jordan and his bureaucracy throws his what he controls into the U.S. camp, that the whole majority of Jordanian citizens are not Jordanians. I mean, the Jordanian population are not Jordanians. A lot of them are Palestinians, a lot or Indian, and a lot are Shiites. It means that if Jordan continues to side with the United States and make itself a target for Iranian retaliation, there's not going to be a monarchy anymore. The monarchy will become part of either part of Iran or as an Iranian client state in one way or another, probably opening it up to votes for the population at large, which of course will have the sympathies not exactly with the monarchy any more than would be the case in the Emirates or Saudi Arabia, which is a similar minority. These you have to Jordan and the Emirates and the kinglets of West Asia were all a product of World War I and World War II, when the Ottoman Empire was carved up, and Britain and France, the two great European colonial powers, redrew the political boundaries of this region and installed client monarchies, client oligarchies, client aristocracies. All of that, we're finally seeing the undoing of the mess that the European colonial powers created after World War I, and then when the British and French empires were absorbed into the American financial empire after World War II, the United States. All of this is, I think, destined to be swept away in the backwash of what's going to happen as the ultimate settlement of the war that's now really just gaining momentum on a global level.